Cari amici di Insieme per l'Europa, vi sono riuniti a Monaco di Baviera in tanti movimenti e gruppi provenienti da varie chiese e comunità per il vostro incontro dal titolo Incontro, Riconciliazione, Futuro. Insieme per l'Europa è una forza di coesione con l'obiettivo chiaro di tradurre i valori base del cristianesimo in risposta concreta alle sfide di un continente in crisi. Insieme per l'Europa? Oggi è più necessario che mai. Nell'Europa di tante nazioni voi testimoniate che siamo figli dell'unico Padre e fratelli e sorelle tra di noi. Siete un seme di speranza prezioso perché l'Europa riscopra la sua vocazione di contribuire all'unità di tutti.
ولكن أقول للداعش قبل أقول للحكومة والله كل ما تفجرون توحدونا وتزيدون أسرار.
We want to get right to that breaking news overnight. Hundreds protesting that deadly shooting in Louisiana after cell phone footage was posted online showing police officers shooting a man outside a convenience store. ABC's Ryan Smith is here with the latest. Good morning, Ryan.
Good morning, Robin. Those protests lasting well into the night. So many registering their outrage over the shooting death of Alton Sterling by two Baton Rouge police officers, and the shocking video of it all caught on cell phone. Overnight, protests growing louder in Baton Rouge after the police shooting death of Alton Sterling, a man reportedly selling CDs outside of a Louisiana convenience store Tuesday. The fatal confrontation between the 37-year-old Sterling and police officers captured in this cell phone video. In the video, two officers appear to struggle with a man, tasing him and slamming him to the ground. One officer seems to yell, "Gun!" And then, shots are fired.
They shot him? Oh my goodness.
They killed this boy.
Oh.
Sterling died at the scene from multiple gunshot wounds to his chest and back. The police department placing the two officers on leave while they investigate. According to police, two officers were responding to an anonymous report of a man with a gun.
He's on the corner, gun in his pocket. He pulled a gun on a complainant and told him he couldn't be around there.
The store owner says he was standing 2 or 3 feet away at the time of the shooting. He says Sterling, a regular at the store, is a father of young children.
He was a nice guy. He wasn't out here doing anything bad. He was always just selling movies, minding his own business.
Public outrage growing quickly. Over 200 people protesting in Baton Rouge. On Twitter, hashtag Alton Sterling, the #1 trend. Over 1 million tweets overnight. And this morning, so many around the country searching for answers, including Sterling's sister.
I really want to know more about what happened because my brother didn't deserve it. He didn't deserve it at all.
The police investigation is ongoing. Now, there are reports that both officers' body cameras fell off during the struggle and that there may not be much police video. Authorities claim that the video does exist. They have not released it as of yet. They're expected to give a press conference this morning.
A Republican gun and anti-terror bill has run into trouble in the House. It bars gun sales to anyone on a terror watch list if prosecutors can prove probable cause of a potential crime. Some 40 members of the Freedom Caucus came out against it today, even though the National Rifle Association endorsed a similar bill in the Senate. That leaves House Speaker Paul Ryan without the votes to pass the measure for now.
We have members from both sides of the aisle who want to make improvements, who want to make changes to the bill. We want to make sure we get it right. The last thing we're going to do is rush something to the floor that we don't have right. And again, this matters to us. This is the Constitution. This means we get this right. We do not want to violate a citizen's due process rights.
Meanwhile, House Democrats called again for much stronger gun legislation. Congressman John Lewis of Georgia spoke at a Capitol rally today.
We cannot be patient. We have come to that point where we're trying to say to members of Congress, all of our members, you must do something. You must act, and act now. Not tomorrow, but now.
Democrats staged a sit-in on the House floor last month, but so far, Speaker Ryan has turned aside their demands for votes.
A dramatic scene in China where rescuers went all out to save this woman swept away by floodwaters. The woman was seen desperately clinging to flood debris. In a river in China's south region, rescue teams threw life preservers from a bridge, but that attempt failed. Later, the woman drifted into a slower part of the flood. That's where she was found and pulled into a rowboat to safety. The woman was said to be in stable condition in a hospital. The scene was part of a catastrophic flooding that the Yangtze River basin has undergone in the past several days. Chinese media says at least 124 people have died, and the situation could worsen with the expected arrival of Typhoon Nepartak later in the week.
U.S., Britain has done a lot of soul searching over its role in the Iraq War. Today, a British government report placed a lot of blame on Tony Blair, the former Prime Minister. Here's Mark Phillips.
It's been 7 years since the bodies stopped coming home to Britain from Iraq. And since that time, an inquiry has been trying to determine whether the war was necessary and the cost in lives justified. The answer? Delivered by the inquiry's chairman, Sir John Chilcot, it wasn't.
There was no imminent threat from Saddam Hussein.
At the center of the inquiry was the relationship, the bromance it was called, between then-President George Bush and the British Prime Minister at the time, Tony Blair. Both men were convinced Saddam had stockpiles of biological and chemical weapons of mass destruction and needed to be disarmed. The Bush policy was regime change, war. Blair's public position was to push the U.S. to seek a UN mandate before attacking. But a note from Blair to Bush sent before the war and revealed by the inquiry seems to promise unconditional support. I will be with you, whatever it says. And he was. When UN weapons inspectors went into Iraq looking for WMD and couldn't find any, the U.S. attacked anyway, and the British, true to Blair's private promise, did too. Blair has been vilified since and was again today. He was also defiant.
What I cannot do and will not do is say I believe we took the wrong decision. I believe I made the right decision and that the world is better and safer as a result of it.
Not in Baghdad it isn't, as last week's devastating bombing again showed. And not for the families of British soldiers who died in Iraq, as Reg Key's son did.
My son didn't die for this, surely. Tell me that he didn't, but I'm afraid he did. He died in vain.
Both George Bush and Tony Blair are long gone from public life. But for the families, the grief and the anger endures. And Iraq, Maurice, which under Saddam was not a base for terror, now is.
Latest statistics show that over 160,000 Iraqi civilians have been killed since 2003. The chaotic situation in Iraq during and after the war transformed the country into a hotbed for terrorist groups. ISIL militants still control large areas of western and northern Iraq and have launched numerous terror attacks around the world. Reconstruction work in the country has been progressing slowly, hindered by continuous attacks and conflicts between Shiite and Sunni Muslims, as well as between the central government and Kurdish authorities. For common Iraqis, life continues to be increasingly tough, with high inflation and unemployment rates, a shortage of power supply, as well as aging infrastructure.
Fresh off the burials of 27 Afghan police recruits in a Taliban bus attack, U.S. President Barack Obama announced another troop adjustment for the American military commitment in Afghanistan.
Instead of going down to 5,500 troops by the end of this year, the United States will maintain approximately 8,400 troops in Afghanistan into next year through the end of my administration.
For a president who promised to end this war, stabilizing Afghanistan has proved to be a hard puzzle to solve. Obama has repeatedly adjusted the number and role of U.S. troops during his presidency. His motivation, to eliminate Afghanistan as a sanctuary for terrorists.
If these terrorists succeed in regaining areas and camps where they can train and plot, they will attempt more attacks against us. We cannot allow that to happen.
NATO and U.S. troops have two roles in Afghanistan: counterterrorism and training and advising Afghan security forces. After a summer spike in violence, the Pentagon has now expanded the military's authority to call in airstrikes and participate in limited combat.
Now, only days after NATO endorsed a project to counter Russia, the Western Military Alliance has announced plans to hold talks with Moscow. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said the NATO-Russia Council meeting will take place at its headquarters in Brussels on July 13th. Western leaders are expected to cement a new deterrent against what they call Russian aggression in Ukraine in a Warsaw summit soon. The Western Military Alliance and Russia last met in April after almost a 2-year break over tensions on Russia's annexation of Crimea. NATO accuses Moscow of military interference in Ukraine, but the Kremlin strongly rejects it.
A suicide bombing claimed by the Islamic State has rocked northeastern Syria on Tuesday. The monitoring group, the Syrian Observatory of Human Rights, said at least 16 people were killed in the attack at a bakery in the mostly Kurdish-controlled city of Hasaka. The group reported that 3 children and 2 women were among those killed, with several others injured. Islamic State said in an online statement that one of its members carried out the attack. The extremist group said the attack targeted the Kurdish YPG militia, which captured large areas of the territory from ISIL in northeastern Syria last year.
In Syria, the military announced a unilateral 3-day truce to mark the end of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. State TV showed Syrian President Bashar al-Assad at prayer services in homes. Government forces recaptured the city earlier this year. Rebel groups said fighting continued elsewhere.
A Catholic nursing home in Belgium is being fined for refusing to help a terminally ill patient end her life. The Catholic Herald reports the patient asked to be put to death by lethal injection, but the nursing home opposed this request, blocking the doctor who would have administered the injection. A federal court in Belgium has fined the nursing home more than $6,000 for taking that step. Belgium has some of the most permissive euthanasia laws in the world.
More than 500 women pushed through Venezuela's National Guard to get across a closed border into Colombia in search of food Tuesday. Venezuela is in an economic crisis and has a food shortage, and people living there are sick of it.
Todo lo que necesitamos allá, nuestros productos en Venezuela, que no lo tenemos, lo estamos tratando de conseguir aquí en Colombia. Papel, hasta el café, porque ya subió bastante allá, ¿no?
Corruption from both countries has led to tight control on the borders, so passing through hasn't been an easy option. Venezuela doesn't produce much of its own food. As a result, it has high prices and few options. The country's main export is oil, so falling oil prices have hit the economy hard.